And welcome to an adorably spooky edition of Archive Thrifting. Largely thanks to Mick Punkin back there. Because it ain't Halloween until Benny Boy puts one of his old McDonald's pails back there. Tradition, you know. So anyway, I rather appropriately, I've got a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of an episode for you here today. I've got footage from 3 stores, and the first store is actually going to take up the first half of this episode. And admittedly, it was shot back in early August, so there's no Halloween stuff in there. But after that, we'll bring you up to speed, up to date here, and we'll have 2 shorter segments, and all the seasonal stuff is in there. So otherwise, let's look at some creepy crawly crap, shall we? Creepy and crawly because of all the cobwebs and insects and other crap. God forbid these stores ever so much as wipe anything off. Sorry, Jackson. Already stopped the car. Anyway, we're making our to date second appearance at 605 Antiques, its current location, and it went pretty well the first time, so here's hoping the second visit is good too. Right out of the gate, I hit the motherload of knockoff albums on 8-track, mostly still sealed. And yeah, there were some enticing normal titles as well, but not really anything I would want specifically on 8-track. But yeah, a few crossover heavy country compilations. And if I pan up, Seals and Croft, from that brief period where Dash Crofts was hopping around on one leg, I guess. Otherwise, I found what might be a knockoff or just a bootleg. So in the past, I found some tapes where they actually claim to be sound-alikes, but are just crappy bootlegs. But Deep Purple's Stormbringer seems like an awfully weird choice to re-record an entire album, but there's only one way to find out. And yes, one of my favorite Deep Purple tunes, the Gispy, is on here. Got what appears to be a TV from the 70s, a gold star, 2 words. Now, this was Oddity. The tag says it needs a new cord. They still want $60 for it anyway. But when I look at the power cord, it looks fine. Properly attached, no tears, prongs look good, and alas, there were no open outlets for me to test with, but you know what? I don't care. I got plenty of CRTs. Laser discs, not records. Well, dang! I thought they were just really shiny, overgrown 45s. Anyway, right out of the gate, a little after dark-ism. They wanted $9 for it, and curiosity got the best of me. I knew I wasn't going to do any better online, so I snagged it. Now, annoyingly, and I may not return to this store because of it, the owners had their grade school-age daughter behind the counter with them. In deference to the kid, I slid this in the middle of my stack of purchases, and they willfully proceeded to extract that disc and whip the damn thing all around. Now, I mean, I obviously don't mind the adults knowing I wanted to buy that one. I was just trying to show, a little courtesy towards the kid. But rant aside, Cinema Paradiso. Probably the first foreign film I ever saw. And it's been on DVD and Blu-ray, but I grabbed it anyway. Oh, I remember that one. I won't spoil it for the youngins, though. And it seems to be a lot of foreign stuff today, it looks like. Now, behind that is one of the first Laserdiscs I ever owned. Pioneer Laser Optics 2, and I ran some of that one way back on the original Format Wars episode. Yeah, the Abyss. Kind of like this dark-ass section of the store. Another bin of Laserdiscs, this time $2 a pop. And this time around, we've got a fairly highbrow selection and a random Prince 45. And by the way, I don't watch Dynasty, and I do have an attitude. Anyway, one of Luis Buñuel's later movies, and, I'm mostly only familiar with his early stuff, and somehow he corralled Catherine Deneuve into this one. I'll buy that for $2. Otherwise, a pretty eclectic, and in a good way, selection here. The Cheap Detective, don't care for that one. Never been a big Chieftains fan, but hey, you don't normally see that in South Dakota. Carbon Copy, a really, really early role for Denzel Washington. Oh, I'm suddenly having flashbacks to the Captain Midnight episode. Ooh, CEDs. Alas, the hunt continues for the in-house stuff. Anyway, the prices were just all over the map, and I'm convinced this is partially the selection that populated I-29 Antiques for years and years. But otherwise, just nothing too special here. Now, all the 2 disc sets were indeed intact. They just got separated within the box. Like you'll see the rest of Ben-Hur later and Airport and so on. Now, yes, a few episodes of The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Star Trek and Saturday Night Live and a few others were issued on CED. And I also found the first 3 Rocky movies in there, but yeah, nothing I want to wear out my CED player over. For what it's worth, the second box/bin of CEDs was about the same. Otherwise, I found a few stray video games, most notably Spy vs. Spy for Game Boy Color. I don't own a Game Boy Color, and $15 seems to be the going Fleabay price for that thing. Anyway, I suck at sports games, and I think this is just a reissue of the Monday Night Football game I did a Ben's Junk on back in 2018. Pro Photo Football, which just looks exciting. Found a couple of VCR games in there, but yeah, both sports. Now, I have a non-sports backlog of these things, so I guess I need to consider another VCR game VHS vault sometime. A sealed long box of Trip Shakespeare's final album. I think I'll leave that for more of an alt-rock connoisseur. Karma, you know. Otherwise, a decent enough selection of mostly classic rock. Already got Tusk on vinyl and CD. Saga, Men at Work, have that on CD. K-Tel compilation. The Village People's first album, and I think the shortest ever debut album. But yeah, everything of this lot that I would ever want, I've already got. Amongst these woefully overpriced LPs was an artist I've only ever seen once before in the used bins, Jerry Jeff Walker. And I am not paying, I think it was $15 for what could be picked up sealed on Discogs for under $10. Oh, more naughty stuff. And one of the later Incredible String Band albums. Anyone that can sit through one of their albums is a much better man than I am. And the haul from this store consists of 9 8-tracks, all record ripoffs candidates, all but one of which was still sealed at $3 a pop. Otherwise found off camera, a stray CD record ripoffs candidate, the Best of Movie Hits Volume 2 from Madison, and I'd still like to do an all soundtracks record ripoff someday. But anyway, 3 Laserdiscs, Cinema Paradiso, Belle de Jour, and yeah, the naughty Playboy disc. And on to my most common Goodwill, and as always, I'm at a good crappy angle from the sign. Someday we'll get an upfront spot. Well, we've got a bit of a mishmash of Halloween and Thanksgiving going on here. And, well, good to know they're still new. I'd be genuinely worried if Goodwill was selling used novelty teeth. A costume that I can't identify, and the packaging looks like it got good and mangled. As I learned last year, I don't need false eyelashes. Last Halloween was weird, and I fear it's going to be even weirder this year. Anyway, I always like going through the bin of random Halloween crap. I've scored old McDonald's pails and weird decorations from these before. Anyway, well, I guess if I wanted to go as a random cloven hoof for Halloween, I'd be in business. And what is it with the frickin' novelty teeth this year? Today I learned that when you decapitate a large stuffed animal, it still goes through rigor mortis. One of those crappy holiday projectors, purchased on clearance at Lewis Drug for $10. And take a wild guess how much Goodwill wanted for it. Anyway, my stupid phone camera refused to focus, but there are Halloween choices on there. Even as an ironic hipster thing, I wouldn't want this. If you remember last year's Halloween thrifting episode, I mentioned we'd had a spider problem over the summer. This year was far worse. Actually, this is akin to what I was finding in my bathroom a couple of months ago. In the VHS section, we've got a couple of seemingly unused blanks, and I've already got a box full of them, sealed. But otherwise, I hadn't seen one of these Deep Space Nine tapes since they were new, and I never cared much for Deep Space Nine. Otherwise, a bit of video store nostalgia. I swear I must have seen about 1,000 of these old Paramount home video stand-up comedy tapes growing up. And yep, Video Update strikes again. Otherwise, there's a fairly early issue of Alfred Hitchcock's Family Plot. And I also found one for the bad public domain VHS artwork pile, with a massive bite taken out of it. Yeah, nothing noteworthy. Found the complete series of Mr. Show, and I used to like Mr. Show fairly well way back when, though I didn't catch it until reruns a few years later. Now, I did not pick this one up, and before you start to yell at me about it, I think I had good reason. Every volume was missing at least one of the discs. If it were complete, it would have been a definite yes. Found one of those cheapy Three Stooges sets, and amazingly, this one wasn't the same old 4 public domain shorts. It was mostly the lame shorts they did with Ted Healy before breaking away from him. Otherwise, I'd forgotten the 4 Dummies series had DVDs for a while. Never got much out of the books, so I can't imagine the DVDs are much better. Oh my god. Could it be? They finally painted? It doesn't look crappy anymore! But is the inside any better? I'm still waiting for the Halloween equivalent to the wooden drag queen Santa Claus. And hey, what is that witch doing? Bad witch! What did that broomstick ever do to you? Anyway, a broken diorama. New from Mattel, Suffocating Barbie. This year has been dreadful for thrifting, and this is the single worst Halloween media selection I've ever seen. A crappy public domain Hitchcock set there, a loose Christopher Pike book, and I actually used to read those, and a random stray copy of the Coal Miner's Daughter soundtrack, which is a perfectly decent movie, I might add, just inappropriate. Attention, Smugglers in Alexandria, Virginia. Your Gino Vanelli album has been located. Otherwise, a Pickwick reissue of a Glenn Campbell album, David Rose and his orchestra, The Stripper, a very famous piece of music. Otherwise, well, looks like we've got us some wild growing Osmonds. Wake me when a copy of Crazy Horses turns up. Aside from that, it's a pretty dull-looking set of records today. And hey, the real Loretta Lynn this time, doing her darndest to look like Judy Collins. I actually am totally okay with Loretta Lynn. I would just much rather have it on CD. Otherwise, hey, an actual Judy Collins album. Bleh. I swear, these Gene Tracy albums follow me around. I swear, I'm going to be forced to cover them, aren't I? Otherwise, there are some better titles. I found a copy of Eddie Money's second album. Already have it on CD. Otherwise, I found a copy of Randy Newman's Little Criminals, home of Short People, of course, and on one of those Warner Brothers Death cartridges. George Harrison's Living in the Material World, which, save for like 3 cuts I've never really cared for, have it on CD anyway, and I actually have most of George Harrison's albums. Jerry Rafferty, I've already got 3 copies of that on different formats. Otherwise, one of those albums that everyone hates but I love, the Allman Brothers' Win, Lose, or Draw. And lastly, Slim Whitman before the TV commercials. Yeah, only if I think we're in for an alien invasion. Apparently, our Atari cartridges are too precious to keep on the floor anymore, and $15 a pop? You could fleabay these for less than half of that. Anyway, I'm so glad I didn't know anyone with an easy bake oven growing up. I'd truly be having gastric problems now. Anyway, if I pan over here, I really wanted to see this RCA VHS camcorder. My two existing VHS camcorders have problems. One eats tapes, the other won't record. And I would say $26 is a bit high, but the shipping alone would be that online. Alas, the thing was a total brick. Oh yeah, and a random dartboard. Well, it's never too early to start the Christmas nightmares, is it? Tucked in behind the camcorder was a 50-foot Super 8 headline film, Abbott and Costello in Have Badge Will Chase. Excerpts from Abbott and Costello Meet the Keystone Cops. They wanted $25 for it. I said, no way, Jose. They marked it down to $8, which is about fleabay pricing. I got it anyway. And the deceptively modest final haul for this episode consists of 9 8-track tapes, all but one still sealed, all record ripoffs candidates, and as it turns out, yes, someone really did re-record Deep Purple's entire Stormbringer album. So since it's Halloween season, I guess I'll end with a bit of the title cut today. Anyway, a record ripoffs candidate on CD, The Best of Movie Hits Volume 2 on Madison. We've got 3 Laserdiscs, 2 of which are kind of artsy-fartsy, Belle de Jour from 1967, and Cinema Paradiso from 1988. And of course, I got the Playboy disc, which I watched. It's about as sexy as a peanut butter sandwich. The outfits are downright ludicrous. And lastly, a little Abbott and Costello on Super 8. After tax, the cost of this haul came out to about $57, about half of which was the 8 tracks. And that's it for this installment of Archive Thrifting. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a bot to deal with.